Bla bla bla, test, suono. Ok. Bla, test, test, test. Ok. And we are live. No. Let's continue our journey with Riepel. So, okay. Let's continue our journey with Riepel from this point. At that time, we stopped when it was started to talk about the new topic about sixthom, but this is the question we read at the end of the last episode, we can say. But would a sixthom divided into two threesomes also be a philosophical beginning? And now we have an example. Let's play it. Fa, do, do, fa, la, sol, mi, do, sol, do, do, da, fa, mi, re, do, do. So threesome plus threesome. 1, 2, 3 plus threesome. 3 bar group plus 3 bar group. Tom, pom, pom, passo, ti, tom, tom, po, pom, po, pam, pam, pam. It's clear that the pattern is a do, re, mi. If we think about this, it's do, re, mi, the so-called paired do, re, mi, because do, re plus re, mi. And why not? You should be able to imagine everything for yourself from the first chapter. The first chapter of the book, so what we have already read before. If that is the case, then I do not need any philosophy. Look, I have also I have also at times seen an opening like the following: fa sol fa mi fa sol fa la sol fa sol la sol da fa sol sol fa mi re. So we can see 1, 2, so 2 bars. Fa sol fa mi fa sol fa la sol fa sol la, then pa pam la sol sol fa mi. The largo with the tutti. This is supposed to be the tutti because then there is the solo, and so on in other variations. I can also thus write 2 foursome and repeat perhaps one of the 2 sums. Let's see. Example number 1. So the following one. Fa la sol do re mi fa re fa la sol fa mi fa sol mi fa mi re do fa sol la sol fa mi re do, and so fa la do re di ra re fa la sol fa mi fa, breath, mi fa sol mi fa mi re do, where here there's something in addition, because 1, 2, 3 and 4, but then there are other 2 bars, mi re do fa sol la sol fa mi re do, which are like they are reinforcing the conclusion. Fa mi re do la sol fa mi re ut. Okay, then another example, the following one. Fa la sol do ra ti ra re fa la sol fa mi fa, and the first phrase is the same. Then mi fa sol mi fa mi re mi fa sol mi fa fa mi re ut. This is actually what we analyzed in the first chapter. This is there is a two sum within a four sum basically. So that's why we can say a six sum, 2 plus 2 plus 2, where this is a variation. Mi, fa, as you can see, this is the repeated section with some variations. Mi, fa, sol, mi, fa, mi, re, mi, fa, sol, mi, fa, mi, re, ut. Or the following example. Fa, la, sol, do, re, mi, fa, re, fa, la, sol, fa, mi, fa, re, fa, la, sol, fa, mi, fa, mi, fa, sol, mi, fa, mi, re. And this is the repeated point. Good. Then quite good. Now you will hopefully see for yourself how a horn piece can be lengthened at will. Or perhaps I also may take 2 repetitions so that 12 measures result from it. So 2 repetitions. Let's see. Fa, la, sol, do, re, mi, fa, re, fa, la, sol, fa, mi, fa, re, fa, mi, re, fa, mi, fa, mi, fa, sol, mi, fa, do, re, mi, fa, sol, mi, fa, mi, re, ut. So, as you can see, there's a repetition here, 1 and 2 plus 1 and 2, and another repetition, 1 and 2, 1 and 2. So the repetitions, they create 2 plus 2, another 4 sum. Okay. What a relief that the young man has grown tired of philosophy on his own. Quite good. Okay. Without a single objection, for the ear always accepts such 12 measure as merely a reinforced 8 sum. Okay. So without a single objection. For the ear always accepts such 12 measures as merely a reinforced 8 sum. Furthermore, as you have already heard in the first chapter, repetition do not easily spoil that. Indeed, I would almost size up on such 12 measures just as readily, if not more readily, than 3 unrepeated regular 4 sum. Okay, so 3 unrepeated regular 4 sum. Let's see. Okay, so there are 3 different 4 sums without any repetition. My eyes and ears are open. I understand everything and notice that I can write 1,000 million repetition variations upon this, so that I have no further need of your or any other human help in this. Overconfidence bias, overconfidence. If, or because I'm assured of this, we can continue even onward in good spirits. Notice that there are actually several kinds of caesura. However, one can easily distinguish them from the commas if one pays attention to metric order just in passing. I will not tax your brain with much writing about it, but I will simply trust in your talent, which I have already observed, and in that hope, I likewise ask whether you already understand the following. Let's see, now we have an andante with 8 bars. Let's play it. Pom pa pa pa, la so fa mi fa sol. Pa pa pa, ta ri re bu re mi. Do mi fa sol, la fa mi, fa re mi fa, mi re. That is mere child's play for me. Look, the fourth measure is a tonic comma, and the 8th is a changing comma, so 5th degree. The others, however, are nothing but cesuras. I will show you in writing. So there's a cesura, pom pa pa pa, la sol fa mi fa sol. So if you want to here invent a structural note, or better, recognize a structural note, we should imagine pom, fa, fa, mi, do, sol, fa. This would be the so-called pattern pastorella. The pastorella, the aprile. Fa, fa, mi, sol, fa. So let's write, let's highlight with a color the structural note. Fa, mi, sol, fa, this way. And a possible bass we can put is this way, do, re, or better, fa, sol, mi, fa, or do, fa, pom, pa, 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 do, te, fa, sol, fa, do, re, ti. As you can see, fa, mi, fa, mi, so, fa, mi, sol, fa, then do, pa, fa, sol. Indeed, it changes a little because there's an eighth note as an upbeat, then 1, 2, 3, then an eighth note, then 1, 2, 3, 16ths. Now an eighth note, but then 2. So even here it's changing a little. Then there's an eighth note and another eighth note. So this is the tonic comma, true. Then there are other cessuras, and then the changing comma, because the note we can put in the bass is G, as you can see. Do, mi, fa, sol. Re, mi, fa, mi, mi. If we want to put a bass, we can put a C. Mi, fa, sol. For example, fa, do, fa, sol, mi, fa, fa, sol. Then mi, fa, converging cadence, fa, sol, this way. And so let's play it again now with the bass. Okay, very good. This opening would serve well not for an andante, but for all other things that one would make shorter rather than too long. Furthermore, the tonic comma as well as the changing comma often are placed farther along at will. I will show you the caesuras with the scene, this scene, in order to save letters. Okay, so instead of writing cesura from this point on, you just write the 2 commas. Okay. That's another example. Let's play it. Bum, bum, bum. Do, po, po. Yes. Da, da, re, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Sol, sol, la. Sol, mi, fa. Fa, sol, fa, re, mi. Re, fa, mi, re, do. Fa, mi, fa. Mi, re, do. Fa, mi, re. Okay. So let's see, is there an analysis? So we have to, no, we have to do it. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. The first 4 sum, as we already know, 1, 2, 3, and 4 here, with the aprile pattern we saw before. Okay, then there's something new. There's another cadence here: mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, re, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. This is a tonic comma. Then there's another phrase where there are other cesuras, sol, and the pattern is sol, sol, fa, mi, sol, fa, mi, up to this point, and then mi, fa, mi, re, do, fa, do, and then la, fa, do, fa, mi, re, and then a changing comma, which is a cadence on the 5th degree. That is certainly something new to me, and so new that these two kinds of commas seems too far apart to me. If I may trust my hearing, the foregoing half as short comma are no less adequate to make a piece as long as desired. You have taken my meaning. Accordingly, if the bass had opposing notes, and let's play this. Okay, this is an eighth note rest. Yes. This way. Such a piece cut up by so many cesuras, composed once or twice a year. Maybe, perhaps, not awkward, but rather something superior. But my lord almost does not know how to compose without the same cesura. So, taken with them is he. I would like at least to form it with more notes that sing out. Let's see it. So basically, is getting out of the cesura here, and so there is a longer phrase, and the cesura arrives only there. Or with rounding and boisterous notes. Ton, tara, ton, ton. 4/4, so this is an eighth note, but this is okay, a quarter note rest. Pom pom, do mi re do, do pom, re fa mi re, this way. Okay. And so there's a little cesura here. Tom pom, pom pire pom, pam pom, pam pa pa pam. And then the following section is longer, ending with a tonic comma. Okay. You are quite right, but this discussion do not belong here. First, we learn to distinguish the cesuras from the commas. I already know that. A cesura often can also take the place of a comma, and vice versa. Accordingly, if the cesura in the fourth measure of the first example, were more similar to the comma, with the cross here, the latter, namely the comma in the eighth measures, this one, will also become more intolerable to the ear. Let's see. He says not good. Pa, 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 da, 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 di, da, da. Which is also to be understood in the case of the second example. Pam, pam, fa, mi, re, do, re, fa, mi, re, do, sol, fa, mi, fa, and it says not good even here. Let's read again this point. Let's see exactly why. A cesura often can also take the place of a comma, okay, and vice versa. Accordingly, if the cesura in the fourth measure of the first example were more similar to the comma, the latter, so the comma in the eighth measure, would also become more intolerable to the ear. Okay, because here actually it's different. So this is good, mi fa sol la, and the last one is descending, mi re do. So there's a clear hierarchy. Okay, they're not the same thing. Even here, mi re do and fa mi re do, fa mi re. So that they are different. Good. Between two equivalent commas, there should certainly be placed a cadence or different sort of comma. Perhaps, however, could one hear these two examples as simple repetition of the tonic comma? Let's see. In that case, one's ear would have to be twisted. I do not accept the last example as correct even once for that reason. For a proper repetition, as yourself know, must indeed be incidental as follow. So in that case, one's ear would have to be twisted. I do not accept the last example as correct even once for that reason. For a proper repetition, as you yourself know, must indeed be incidental as follows. Changing comma is repeated. Let's see this example. Okay, and so there's a tonic comma repeated and tonic comma, changing comma and changing comma. Okay, one would proceed similarly in the case of the last allegro, so that's why it says that it doesn't like it. And here it says good. Let's see. This example is good. Pam pam, pam pa pa pam. And going on. I have read the repetitions a little at the same time. Okay, because there's a repetition. In that case, this is good. Why? Because there's a repetition. 1 and 2, then it's repeated. So the repetition of the comma makes sense. It's not another phrase. 1 and 2, and then 1 and 2, exactly. 1 and 2, changing comma, repetition of the same phrase. And so we can have the same comma, even with some little variations, okay? I have varied the repetitions a little at the same time, which would have been, in truth, not necessary. Otherwise, such 16 measures must hopefully sound a bit different from the previous ones with their expanded comma segments. And whoever wanted to have such an opening shorter needs but repeat only the comma, and whoever wanted to have such an opening shorter needs but repeat only one comma and leave the other, on the contrary, unrepeated. And whoever wanted to have such an opening shorter needs but repeat only one comma and leave the other, on the contrary, unrepeated. Let's see. So here and here, comma, and then there are the two same things. So it's just a repetition. Piano and forte, piano and forte. Okay. Or the other way around. Pa, 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 la, sol, fa, mi, fa, sol. Do, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, re, mi, fa, mi, re, mi, fa, sol, la, fa sol fa mi fa re mi fa sol fa mi re. Okay, so in that case there's a repetition without changing the commas at the end. Here is the first section which is repeated, and here, okay, here the first section, 1 2 3 and 4. In that case, 1 2 3 4 is the second section which is repeated. Okay, so needs to repeat only the comma and leave the other, on the contrary, unrepeated. And certainly this does not apply only at the beginning of a musical piece, but one can make short or long repetition throughout, in my opinion, when, where, how, and as often as one will, in a word, in all the possible variation. Okay. Now, I myself confess that you will no longer need my help hereafter, neither for repetitions, not for caesuras. Consequently, we will immediately begin to look at the modulation after the changing comma. Notice that if one composes an andante, a solo, an aria, or a symphony, commonly and at a minimum, a cadence in the fifth, so in G, is formed, which cadence is also commonly announced by a changing comma. Good, but this will be the topic of the next video. So the next video will continue from this point. And there's something I want to understand before, because okay, this phrase, but I don't know what it was the meaning with the phrase, so with the word but. Shorten needs but. Don't understand this. It's an English, something related to the language, but let's do this. If I make a screenshot and oops, and I ask ChatGPT, let's see, perfect. Traduci in italiano. In italiano. Wait, let's see what. Ah, italiano, ok. Ho variato un po' le ripetizioni, ok. Ho variato un po' le ripetizioni allo stesso tempo, cosa che in verità non sarebbe stata necessaria, ok. Altrimenti queste 16 misure dovrebbero auspicabilmente suonare un po' diverse dalle precedenti, con i loro segmenti di comma ampliati. E chi volesse avere un'apertura più breve deve soltanto ripetere un solo. Ah, deve soltanto. So needs but. Ok, deve soltanto ripetere un solo comma e lasciare l'altro al contrario non ripetuto. Ok, so needs but means deve solamente. Ok, so it's a reinforcement. Ok, good. See you in the next video. Okay, so we continue now after a 5 minutes break. Okay, we are back. Spotify error. Thank you. Hello, Spotify error 404. New bottle of water. Let's continue our journey with Riepel, and this time we have to talk about the following thing. So, the modulation after the changing comma. Here. Consequently, we will immediately begin to look at the modulation after the changing comma. This is the new topic. Notice that if one composes an andante, a solo, an aria, or a symphony, commonly and at a minimum a cadence in the fifth is formed, which cadence is also commonly announced by a changing comma. Okay, and then there's an example. Let's play this. On the fonte, okay, then changing comma, which anticipates the cadence in G. Then there is the fonte, so a modulation, do, re, two cesuras, then another changing comma, okay, and then the final cadence in C major. The double repetition scenes could, for the sake of brevity, be omitted, and the second part can begin with cesuras in other keys, namely on monte or ponte. Okay. So this is a cesuras on the fonte. So, do, te, do, te, ta, sol, fa, mi, fa. These little cesuras, okay? And the second section can start with the monte. Here we have the same example, but we have the beginning on the monte of the second part. So the double scene should be here, but it doesn't repeat it. Mi, fa, sol, la, mi, fa, do, fa, mi, re, fa, di, re. One, two, three, monte. Okay, so about this monte, fa, mi, sol, fa, it's F major, mi, fa, G major, mi, fa, A minor, mi, fa, this. Okay. Cesura in C or the tonic, for I cannot call it a comma here without fearing that I will create confusion. I hope nevertheless to soon set the boy on the right track. So what's talking about? 107. Okay. it means here cesura C major. Okay, okay. Because C major and before D minor, of course. Cesura in F and G, exactly what we saw before, but there's another cesura actually which is connected to what follows. So it's a cesura but doesn't stop. I mean, or better, maybe it's not a cesura in this term, but it's a repetition which continues, a repetition of the same segment, because as you can see it is without the cesura. So that's why probably. It's a repetition without the cesura, which means that's a repetition but without the rest after, so which is required for a cesura. Cool. If, however, these 32 measures seems to me too short for a complete andante or for the final vivace of a symphony, might I not also place a double repetition in the middle of them? Heavens, why do you doubt it? Such small details are all arbitrary. Thus I will, meanwhile, quickly compose the second part, namely the last 16 measures, over the ponte. And there's the ponte now. Let's see. So after this point, there's the cadence. Mi, fa, mi, re, woot. The second section. Okay, so this ponte section doesn't create any repetition ascending or descending, any ascending or descending repetition like the Montefonte, but it stays the same point, so horizontal. Around G. Then around C. So this is focused on G and here on C. Okay. That's why it calls it ponte. Then, first I must ask something. May one also repeat a cadence? Do not doubt it, even occasionally more than once, 2 or 3 repetitions if you wish. For repetitions of cadences singularly help make the melody seem unusual. Just look at the opera arias. Repetition of cadences singularly help make the melody seems unusual. Even occasionally more than 1, 2 or 3 repetitions if you wish. For repetition of cadences singularly help make the melody seem unusual. Just look at opera arias. I will bear that in mind for now and forever. Meanwhile, it is indeed true that the commas and cadences in these 32 measures speak with one another in an orderly fashion. However, I trust myself only with a Montefonte or Ponte of 16 measures, drawn out of 32 measures by means of repetition and with the most beautiful embellishments. Okay. It's indeed true that the commas and cadences in these 32 measures speak with one another in an orderly fashion. However, I trust myself with a Monte Fonte, with a Monte Fonte or Ponte of 16 measures, drawn out to 32 measures by means of repetition and with the most beautiful embellishments with this example. Let's play it. I fear only that there are too many repetitions, otherwise I could have included more of them, which I will show you by means of only the last system. Okay, I now leave that to your future sensible judgment. Now you know how to prolong a melody in two ways, namely by means of the creation and regulation among commas and repetitions. However, you do not yet know anything about expansion, literally throwing out. Perhaps that will come about over time, namely if I use nothing but whole or half notes in common time and perhaps write adagio above them. No, that is not what I mean. Rather, how the measures and the notes of a monte, fonte, ponte will be prolonged. Okay. And so, here. Okay, there are a lot of examples using the same principles, so this can be the topic of the next video. So in the next video of this reading, we'll continue reading about the expansion. So, see you. Okay. There's Sean. Hello, Sean. Okay. Let's continue our journey with Riepel, talking about the expansion. What it means about the expansion? Expansion of what? Of monte, fonte, and ponte. So here there is a monte section that can be repeated ascending, but there can be an expansion, which is the following thing. So the monte section, sol, fa, mi, do, fa, expanded, to, pam, pa, pa, pam, pa, sol, fa, pa, 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 pam. Basically, we take a single segment, for example, here, 2 bars long, because the single segment is 2 bars long, 1, 2, and we make it longer. For example, 4 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we can repeat, instead of the 2 single section, the 4 section. Okay, or still more expanded. The following example is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bars. 6 bars. Sol, ta, ti, ta, sol, la, sol, mi, sol, fa, mi, do, fa, la, so, ta, ti, re, do, ta, ti, do, ta, 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 which consists of a repetition of the first two sum. Okay. Sol, ta, of the first 2 bars. Sol, fa, pa, fa, sol, la, sol, mi, do, fa, mi, fa, la, so, ta, 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 ta. This way. Then still more expanded with 8 bars. So 8 per 3 is 24 bars long. Sol, fa, ti, ta, 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 so, so, sol, fa, ti, ta, ti, ta, la, so, ta, ti, re, do, ti, ta, ta. Very long. Okay. Although it is almost indistinguishable from the previous two prolongation, I would not have thought of it readily. I like everything about it, but you have only prolonged the caesura segment. With your permission, I will include the comma segment together. Namely, let's see. So, tum, tam, pa, va, fam, la, sol, fa, mi, re, mi, do. I will thus prolong both of them. Okay. Tam, ta, 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 la, tu, ra, tum, ta, ti, ru. And then the prolongation of the following comma. Stop, stop, stop. Now I see that I've made the comma segment 2 measures shorter than the casuras, 6 instead of 8. Therefore, I will quickly just let it be. One often sees, even in good compositions, that the comma segment is longer than the caesura segment. For example, okay, so this is the opposite, the comma segment longer. Why? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bars. So the second segment is longer. They sometimes flow as smoothly into the ear as if they were both of the same length, if perhaps not more smoothly. It pleases me and you to hear this. Besides, I notice that repetition with a cross can likewise help expansion. For example, so the repetition, this section with the cross, 1, 2, 3, and 4, because it's a repetition of what? Of the previous two bars. Yes. Certainly, namely in all the variations, possible variations. May I then also sometimes deceive the ears a little by means of an occasional separation of two sums deceive the ears a little by means of an occasional separation of two sums. Let's see. What's the occasional separation? Then there's even here a repetition. Re, fa, la. Let's see. Sol, fa, ti, fa, la, so, mi, sol, fa, pop. Okay. You can write such passage 3 or 4 times per year, for I find that the two sum is not just separated, but rather a little bit confused by means of weird notes. Cesura. Ta, ti, re, fa, la, sol, sol, fa, mi, re, fa, la, sol, sol, fa, mi, re. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1 and 2. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this is another section, probably. It's talking about this, the repetition of this segment. Good, I have already become more clever still. I will therefore expand the fonte a bit. So now there is the expansion of the fonte. Let's see it. Cesura and comma. Expanded, version 1. Okay, then still longer. Pam pa 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 ta to te ti la sol fa la re ta ti re to ti to fa re fa. Okay, or still much longer. Okay, the cesura segment or the comma segment, whether longer or shorter or both together, can be made such longer through repetition, is already well known anyway. The cesura segment or the comma segment, whether longer or shorter or both together, can be made much longer through repetition. It is already well known anyway. Thus, I will form one or two examples on the ponte, namely then expanded. So here this is the font which is staying on the same point. That's why ponte. Oh, mi, sol, do, re, mi, fa, sol, mi, sol, fa, mi. Expanded, so longer. Do, mi, sol, do, re, mi, fa, re, fa, te, do, re, mi, fa, re, sol, fa, mam, pa, pa, pom. Pam, pa, mi, fa, la, mi, fa, re, mi, fa, la, mi, fa, and then the final comma. Okay. However, these prolongations almost make me tired. Yes, because since it's a ponte, the ponte stays around the same note. It's boring. I would rather put them in order at home as soon as I have the opportunity. This is not 1 hour like another. Okay. And this is not one day like the other either. However, in the view of many, this one, so the one whose imagination has the capacity to do the most, is the one who invokes the unfavorable influence of the stars and uses the pretext of a stomach ache, no matter how healthy and lively he always appears, because since birth he has given himself over to idleness. Well, then, tell me more. I don't want to appear either too lively or too weak. The fourth way to prolong a melody is insertion, which is called parenthesis claudatur. Parentical clause in Latin. First, I will just set out a quite plain opening, but we'll talk about this in the next video. So, it is 11 minutes long, so that's okay. And the next video, we'll talk about the insertion. Okay, we'll do it now, but I've just it's like what Fuchs should have done. Yes, but I don't understand what you talk about Fuchs. So what you mean exactly about Fuchs? What topic? Ah, okay, yes, the dialogue form is a form which is widely used in this period. From the Renaissance, late Renaissance, for example, Vincenzo Galilei's book about music. It's still so they started to use again the dialogue form. Yes, true. Okay. Let's continue now our journey with Riepel, talking about the insertion. So the fourth way to prolong a melody is insertion, which is called parenthesis claudatur, parenthetical clause in Latin. First, I will just set out a quite plain opening. And so this is the first melody, which is the plain opening. And now I will insert, say, 4 measures. Okay, let's see. This is the insertion, and then there's another insertion because it says or, so another possibility. 2 ways. Okay, and there are syncopations here. Probably this is the chord. Then the next example, mi sol sol fa mi. On the same day, she is mother and stepmother, since a lazy man is always on vacation. Okay. And this can be done not only at the beginning, but throughout wherever desired. I know that well, but is this a rule? It is certainly a rule, or rather a specification or a model, but not entirely a law. You can also omit the previously mentioned 3 prolongation, as far as I'm concerned. Likewise, the following 5th type, namely prolongation by means of doubling cross the cadences. Okay, the repetition, doubling the cadences where there is the sin cross. But one moment. So what is this about, the insertion? So just consists in inserting, for example, another foursome. Yes, it seems about inserting a section, which can be mi, re, fa, mi, or in the second example, the insertion la, do, re, sol, mi, fa is not so far from a fonte. Sol, sol, fa, mi, do, fa, do, ta, ti, canton. Okay, so this insertion recalls to me a ponte because it stays on the single note 5th degree G. While the second insertion recalls to me a fonte. Why? Because it's descending. There are 2 cadences, little cadences to D minor and then C major. Then pa, pa, pa. Okay. Then the other doubling, so the other prolongation, the 5th one, but which is so by means of doubling the cadences. Let's play this example. Okay, without doubling. This was without doubling. Now with doubling. Okay, repeating the cadence. So there's a repetition of the last two measures with the doubling. Okay, the cadence basically. Next example. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then 1, 2, 3. Ah, so how does it work? Wait a moment. 1 and 2. 1 and 2, I guess. 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1. No, no, no. There's something strange indeed. How many bars are there here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So it's like if there are 4 bars, and that's okay. Then the repetition takes ta 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 tan tan ta 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 tan tan, and there's one more bar here. I don't know if this is a mistake or something else. By the way, okay, that's the repetition, or a false and deceptive cadence. Tan tan mi re mi fa sol la so fa mi re do. Okay, so this repetition takes the deceptive cadence. Mi re mi. Probably not a deceptive cadence in our modern terms. La sol fa mi re do should be the expectation, but la sol fa mi re mi fa as re mi instead of re do. Po ba la sol fa mi fa mi re fa mi re mi fa sol la sol fa mi re mi, even if I would expect fa mi re mi fa sol la sol fa mi re do. So the first cadence ascending re mi, and the second cadence re do, so that we have 4 plus 4. Okay, or weird if you wish. Fa mi re mi fa sol la sol fa mi re do re mi fa sol la sol mi fa mi re do fa mi re do. What is this? An appoggiatura from the same note? Probably mi re, probably do re, or fa mi re do re do, probably, because at the end is the same, probably arriving from the bottom. Or weird if you wish. Fa mi. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or here with the fourth measure, cut away. Fa mi re mi fa sol la fa mi re do la sol mi fa mi re do re do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bars indeed. Because let's see what's happening. We have 1, 2, 3, and it's cutting away this measure, and then 1, 2, 3, and 4. Ah, no, that's not the measure which is cut. This one is cut. Do la sol mi fa mi re do re do. Or with the bass weird. With variation in the bass. Why not? We can do variations in the bass too if we have two voices. Okay, so what are the variations? Let's see all of them. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, re, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do, la, fa, re, mi. So, la, sol, mi, fa, re, do, la, sol, do, sol, la, so, fa, mi, re, do. The repetition is 1, 2, la, sol, mi, fa, re. And from this, la, sol, where one measure is cut away. And variations are here. Mi, re, do, but here mi, fa, re, mi. Okay, makes sense. Or, I mean, yes, but is this measure and this measure. Variations, and even the following one is a little bit different. 1, fa, mi, re, do, la, fa, sol, mi, fa, mi, re, do, la, fa, sol, do. Instead of the same repetition like this, 1, fa, mi, re, la, fa, sol, mi, fa, re, mi, fa, sol, do, fa. Do, no. And very beautiful, this imitation. Pom, fa, mi, fa, re, mi, da, ra, ra, sol, la. One, two, three. Or the cadence can be repeated together with its preceding comma. The cadence can be repeated together with its preceding comma. Okay. Ah, okay. So is the repetition of the entire phrase. That's why we have the repetition, the repetition scene, the ritornello. Or with something removed from the comma. Something removed now from the comma. Let's see. One, two, three. Okay, that's very nice. So there is the first foursome. Po, bam, do, fa, la, sol, fa, mi, re. 4. Fa, mi, fa, sol, la, so, fa, mi, re, do. Okay. Then re, mi, fa, mi, re. Here, re, mi, fa, mi, re is repeat or something removed. Probably it means taken from the comma here. This is repeated. Re, mi, fa, mi, re. Re, mi, fa, mi, re. Then fa, mi, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. So it's repeating this comma 2 times now. Fa, mi, re, mi, fa, sol, la, so, fa, mi, re, mi, as deceptive. Mi, fa, sol, la, so, fa, mi, re. So let's say that this deceptive is what we can call evaded cadence. Okay, it's not deceptive cadence in modern terms. Even if it could work, because the principle is the same. You deceive the ear. If you do this, or in both cases, you are deceiving the ear with another ending instead of descending to another note. Instead of descending to C with a major harmony to the third, or even in modern terms to A minor, the 6th degree. Or more deceptively than before, namely if the third as well as a tonic is left out in the first cadence, so it's cutting out an entire bar. Let's see. Fa, mi, re, mi, fa, sol, la, fa, mi, re, fa, mi, re, mi, fa, sol, la, so, fa, mi, re, do. Okay, so it's cutting out the conclusion of the first phrase. I should hold off. I should hold off explaining the sharp until tomorrow. For example, fa, di, re, mi, fa, sol, la, fa, mi, re, mi, fa, mi, re, mi, fa, sol, la, fa, mi, re, do. Before I played the sharp, I remember, but it's going to explain it now. Or the cadence doubled still more. Let's see the cadence doubled still more. I think we are at the end of an important section, yes, so we'll start from here next time. The cadence doubles still more. Fa, mi, re, mi, fa, so, ti, ti, do, so, mi, fa, ta, ta, ti, do, fa, mi. Okay, let's see that. Okay. Here, there may be too many cadences for you, but I once saw 8 cadences placed in succession in an area without being anything strange. Okay, but this is the a starting point of a new section with other considerations about cadences, and we'll talk about this in the next video because this otherwise becomes very long. So, see you. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Riepel is not known so much, but I like that it creates a lot of examples from the same notes. This on the same musical idea. This is what I like of this book. So let's see what's going on. Bye bye. Okay, so he's talking about different section and modulations, probably. Okay, here we are. Let's continue our journey with Riepel, and in this video we start a new section where we continue to talk about cadences in general. So, let's see. We have these last two examples, especially the last one, where there are many cadences. Let's play these again. And there are many cadences. Indeed, Riepel says, here there may be too many cadences for you, but I once saw 8 cadences placed in succession in an aria without there being anything strange about them. Besides, I've only tossed out some examples quickly. You yourself can discover thousands of them at your leisure, as often as you compose something, for you have already heard that multiple successive cadences create oddities. You also know that they are found in concertos and symphonies just as in arias, because one must imitate the vocal passages with the instruments. To this, I will only add that the tonic cadence, remember that black cadence means tonic cadence. Riepel is not racist, he is the black tonic cadence. That the tonic cadences are doubled more often than the changing cadences. So changing means at the fifth degree in this context. I will give you a little sample of this in a horn piece. Okay, here is the first part. Here in the first part there is one cadence, and in the other part there are 2 of them. Let's see. One, two, three. Pam pam. Fa mi fa re do. Okay, so here in the first part there is one cadence, and in the other part there are 2 of them. But is it talking about the other part? What other part is talking about? So the second section. Let's see. Here in the other part, there are 3 cadences. And in the first part, there are 2 of them. Wait a moment. To this, I will only add the tonic cadence. The tonic cadences are doubled. Okay. Do, mi, sol, sol, fa, te, te, ti, re, do, do. And this is a changing cadence. Okay. Then in the first part there is one cadence, so I guess that the first part it means this section, because there's one cadence, and in the other part there are 2 of them. I don't know if he's talking about the conclusion, which is repeated. Probably it's this. So in the second part, do ta da do fa mi re mi fa la sol fa mi re do re re do pa da da do la sol fa mi re do. Where there are 2 cadences here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 2 more bars. Or Mi sol sol fa mi la sol fa mi re do do fa yes, but the other part, so it doesn't mean the second section. It means that now after or there are two cadences. So pum pa pa pum pum pa 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 pum. Here they are. Okay, clear. Here in the other part there are three cadences. Okay. Now you have to understand the logic of this. So here in the other part, but here in the other part there are three cadences, and in the first part there are two of them. I'm confused. Wait. So yeah, in the other part, so let's use different colors. Okay, here there is one cadence. Let's use red. Cadence to G. Okay. Because there are two examples. First of all, two. Okay, so here it'd be better to write this. So let's do a separation line. Okay. In the second example, here there are two cadences, to G and to G, at the place of the single cadence. Then in the other example, there are two cadences. Let's use the color green. Re, do, re, do. Here there are three. So here in the other part, so there are three cadences, and in the first part there are two of them. So I don't know if this is something which is supposed to be placed here, or I think that there's a little typo, because this should be placed at this point, to make, to I guess. Okay, by the way, it makes sense. And in the first part, in the first example, so in the previous one. Okay, so here in the other part, there are three cadences, which are mi, re, do, the last one, and mi, re, do, and mi, re, do, 1, 2, and 3. Re, dom, pom, fa, mi, re, do, 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 ti, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. While in the previous example, not the part means of a section, first section, second section, but in the previous part, the previous example, there are only two cadences. Okay, so we had one cadence plus two, and now 2 plus 3. Let's play both examples again. One, two, three. Second example, do, mi, sol, sol, fa, mi. One, two, three. It also seems quite natural that the greatest emphasis be saved until last. In spite of that, I've often seen in good opera arias that the changing cadence is doubled up to 3, 4, or 5 times more than the tonic cadence. Just look at the arias that your Lord has at home. Perhaps I'm deceiving myself. I'm benumbed with delight. What does it mean? Benumbed. Let's see. Where's the dictionary? I should have the dictionary here. No, I don't see it anymore. Let's reopen it. So, I am benumbed. Intorpidito. Made numb, be numbed. Ok, intorpidire. Be numbed by cold. Ok. I am benumbed with delight, for by means of these 5 kinds of prolongation, I venture now to vary a single allegro of a symphony or of a concerto quite easily in 1,000 ways, in all possible variations. I only want to try a few measures with individual types of repetition. So, a few measures with the individual types of repetition. Do, mi, sol, sol, fa, mi, do, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, do, do, pop, la, sol, fa, mi, fa, re, mi, fa, mi, re. And then with repetition. Do, mi, sol, sol, fa, mi, do, sol, sol, fa, mi, do, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, do, do, la, sol, fa, mi, fa, re, mi, fa, mi, re. So there's the repetition of the first two and two. Or another example, do, mi, sol, sol, fa, mi, do, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, do, mi, do, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, do, la, sol, fa, mi, fa, re, mi, fa, mi, re. Here the repetition is 2-3 to 3. Do, fa, mi, do, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, do, do, fa, la, sol, fa, mi, fa, so, do, la, sol, fa, mi, fa, re, mi, fa, mi, re. Here the repetition is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, this way. And do, mi, sol, sol, fa, mi, do, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, do, fa, la, sol, fa, mi, fa, re, mi, fa, mi, re, sol, fa, mi, re. Re, sol, fa, mi, re. So what about this? Re, mi, fa, mi. So it's developing the appoggiatura with real notes. Re, mi, fa, mi, re, sol, fa, mi, re. Here is what it's doing. And now I will repeat the first 4 measures all together and then also the last 4. No example is given. So the first 4 measures all together and then also the last 4, which would be something like do, mi, sol, sol, fa, mi, do, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, do, mi, sol, sol, fa, mi, do, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, do, la, so, ta, ti, ta, ta, ra, ta, te, ti, re, do, ra, ta, ta, ti, ta, re, mi, fa, mi, re. I believe you're confused. You're going backwards. Crab fashion. We have already had one or another example of it. I would rather compose for you a quite short and simple allegro, just as if it were a symphony on which you will then make a few alterations. Okay, this is the allegro of a symphony. Let's play it. So, beginning of the first part. Here it is. So, pom 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 pa re mi re mi fa to fa la to fa mi fa ton 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 ta re mi re mi fa to la to fa mi re do sol la ton 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 to ti to te tin ton sequence pam 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 be re to tin ti dam pam pa pam 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 pa pa pam so sol sol mi fa mi re pa 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 mi re to. Second section. Pa pam 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 pa pa pam pam pa do fa mi sol la fa sol fa mi pam 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 ti ti to tri tari te tira sol sol su mi fre mi. Okay, that's nice. So let's see what's happening. At the same cross, so plus, cioè, yeah, I've made a 5th degree change in comma in order to announce the following cadence in G. where it is? Ah, here. In order to announce the following changing cadence in G. This one, basically. Okay. Because such a comma also belongs to G. Ah, yes, because it's the fifth degree of G. So it's D. That's why. To G. And at the same time, it's harmonized according to the bass is on D. Accordingly, I could have made a similar cadence after a tonic changing comma, because this is not to be thought as yeah, only this way, because this is A belonging to G, so with D in the bass, right? Okay, then let's break down these in small passages. Pam 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 pa tra ta tra ta tra ta tra ta ta ti ta. Okay, mi fa comma cadence, so comma tonic comma, because it's on the fifth degree, on the first degree. Is fifth, is first degree. Mi fa pam, repetition. Do ti ra to. Changing comma on the fifth degree. Ti ra to. Then dum dum dum, and this way we have 4 bars. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Other 4 bars with the changing comma, so the changing comma of G major, okay, preceding the following cadence, which is a cadence to G. Repetitions. And cadence to G. Okay. Then beginning of the next section, interesting, instead of ascending, then we have the descending arpeggio. Why not? It creates very nice variation. Recalling the arpeggio, eh? Pom 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 poi da ti ti ta to ti ta, and what's happening here? Tonic comma. That's a tonic comma actually. Tonic comma, 1, 2, tonic comma. So let's write tonic comma of G major, of course. Ah, okay, but wait a moment. Tonic comma, true in G, but here we are moving back to C major. So he probably considered this a changing comma. That's why, because the follow if the arriving point is a tonic comma, which is the tonic comma in C major, now we have the changing comma this way, G major. Okay. And he considered this the changing comma, which is nothing more than the transposition of what we had before. Okay, so the black and the white comma are inverted now. What? So black and white, and now white and black. So that the following part can be at the first degree in G major, or better in G major for approaching the comma on G, which is before the final comma on D, on C. Okay, good. So C major and then to G major. This section it's in G major, ending on the fifth degree, which is D, and this D helps the arrival of the cadence to G major. Perfect. And then we have the same elements, but transposed in terms of scale degrees, okay? In order to start in G with a changing comma, then back to C major, tonic comma, then another changing comma, and the final cadence to C major, so that the last 8 bars are the same transposition, but but let's say a fifth down, and here instead of the octave leap we have the unison in order to stay in a good range, because it would be too high. So at the C plus, okay, what we read before, I could have made a similar cadence after a tonic changing comma. Let's see. I could have made a similar cadence after a tonic changing comma. Tonic changing comma. Or it's changing or it's tonic. After a tonic changing comma, or at the C plus, I've made a fifth degree changing comma in order to announce the following cadence in G, because such a comma also belongs to G, and at the same time, its harmony, according to the bass, is on D. Accordingly, I could have made a similar cadence after a tonic changing comma, similar cadence. After a tonic changing comma, probably. So what does it mean with tonic changing comma? Wait. After tonic, it's not tonic changing comma. It's not the same comma. It's a tonic, so black, and then changing comma. So after tonic and another comma, changing comma, because this is the order. There is a tonic comma, there is the changing comma, indeed, and then there is such cadence he's talking about, this section. Okay, without using this kind of cadence, the cadence, they are not two. So it's not talking about a cadence which is tonic and changing, but two cadences, tonic and changing comma. Or if you prefer, a bit longer. Let's see this. So we shouldn't have in this section this cadence, the cadence with D in the bass. Yes, here there's no change, there's not the cadence we had before. Good. That concerned the plus in the first part of the allegro. Now further, at the beginning of the second part, I've marked the P repeated notes of the opening theme in reverse in order to climb into higher register. Okay, so here where there is a P, instead of, because if he wants to do the lower register, would be very down, very low if he wanted to do the same thing. So that thanks to this we can stay in a higher register. Good. And then there is the other point with the 2 plus scenes. Let's see what he's going to say. At the double scene plus plus, C++, if you are a computer programmer, I've made a tonic comma in order to return home to the tonic. Good. C, to the tonic C, in the most beautiful manner. The last mark, Q, means that I could not climb as high as the Q in the first part. Let's see, where is the Q? Yes, the octave leap we talked about before, okay? Because we cannot make a big leap, there's a repetition. My lord said, however, that the second part must be longer than the first. You, on the contrary, have made both parts of this allegro equal in length. Your lord should show me a fixed rule. Doesn't a minuet have both parts generally of the same length? And it can unfortunately win over human sensibilities nonetheless. And the minuet can unfortunately win over human sensibilities nonetheless. Okay. Did yourself not say in the first chapter that it would be a good wait. Did you yourself not say in the first chapter that it would be good if the second part of the minuet had above 2 more measures than the first part? Would be good is different from it must be true. Because it is good, I want to make the second part always longer than the first, for the sake of greater force. But you know what? You could have shown me the foregoing allegro in miniature, just as painter depicts a journey through the countryside on a piece of paper, only as broad as your hand, in so-called miniature. Okay. So this is the miniature version. Then okay, what's happening here? Do, tanto, fa, mi, fa. Here there is a tonic comma. Tonic comma. Fa, la, sol, fa, mi, do. Changing, so black and white, changing comma. Mi, do. Pam, pa, pam, 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 pa, pam, pam, pam. Here the other changing comma on D in the bass. And this point, the cadence to G. So the same structure, but shorter. Then pam 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 pa pam, G cadence. So changing cadence. Then tan ton tan tan ta ton ton to tan 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 taran. Now we have the changing comma and the other tonic comma. Here fa mi som pa pam pa 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 sol fa ti re to ti ti ten. This changing comma. Pam pa pam pa sol la la sol fa mi re do, and the final tonic cadence according to these rules and order. Next example, let's see. Ta ta fa mi fa fa la sol fa mi do sol la do 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 pam 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 pom. Tonic comma, changing comma, and then the changing cadence. Tonic, changing comma, tonic comma, this way, fa mi. And here is the final cadence, the tonic cadence. Or because in this only the C, only the tonic C and its fifth G are presented, exactly, fifth G are presented, I could also set out the commas this way. Comma 5 degrees, so changing comma, pa pom this time, instead of tonic comma, changing comma, tonic comma, ta ton. Then cadence. Tan 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 tan. Then even here changing and then tonic. So let's write it here, changing and then tonic. and then tonic cadence. Or the miniature could be still smaller, namely just in letters CGC. In the foregoing allegro, there are only the same two keys. So in the foregoing allegro, there are only the same two keys, namely the tonic C and its fifth G. Just as if, for example, a steward Meyer, what the fuck? What? The steward on many farms is practically the lease order. Elsewhere again, he is a half farmer who has his own house. I use this word in the way that it is understood in my homeland and in Monsberg. Okay. Just as if a steward mayor and his foreman Oberknecht work in the field and speak to each other with perpetual question and answer. C is like a steward and G is like the foreman. Okay. On the other hand, the fifth is called also dominant, the ruler in several musical writings. I know, however, nothing more than nota dominans or modus dominans. This last expression would not fit well with a tonality with the minor third, except in fugues, as we shall see. The term nota elegans, the term nota elegans, Latin, have I also seen once in a book. Since, however, a work by the author himself came into my hands, in which I found very few nota elegans, I have been able to form no correct idea of this term. Probably he's talking about, you know who? Nota elegans, the knows the classification with peregrinas elegans by what's the name? Walter in the Musikalische Lexicon is talking about this probably. Yeah. Furthermore, our steward, who is in charge of the whole house on the estate of the Honorable Lord Baron, has several people, namely a foreman, a chief maid, an assistant maid, a day laborer, an errand girl, and beyond these, often black Gretel. His neighbor must help to work a small piece of land. But the steward is always the first and the last at work, and the most industrious among them all. But the steward is always the first and the last at work, and the most industrious among them all. You are really catching into the idea of this story. I beg you, remember this order well, for there could be in all the world no better analogy to tonal order than this really at hand. Just a little patient, I must tell you something else before concluding. I would prefer that I only began to speak with so much energy, so that I could rest little, for you have made my head quite dizzy this past half hour with such abundant examples. Even the steward always sits down a while and observes what his people are doing, and mental work drains one's strength even more. I will prolong the allegro immediately afterwards. Just tell me what you want to say. I will prolong the allegro immediately afterwards. Just tell me what you want to say. And then, okay, there's something moving on with this metaphor of stewards, foreman. Okay, I don't know what's going to happen now. Let's see. I have read not only in Kircher but also in several more recent and generally more trustworthy authors that in America, there's an animal about the size of a cat, which inspires everyone's compassion with its ghastly and yet pathetic face, and thereby preserve its life. On the other hand, no human power can lose from it what it once holds fast in its extraordinarily large and strong claws. No one knows, even at this time, what kind of food it eats, or even if it eats. It is called pigrizia, or sloth, because it cannot. So pigrizia is so written this way, probably is Latin, but even in Italian, pigrizia means laziness. Laziness, something who wants, for someone who doesn't want to do anything. Pigrizia, laziness, or sloth. The sloth, not the sloth machine. Someone, I want someone to invent the sloth machine where you can take the sloth, but then there will be animalist. So pay attention. At least Muppets, say sloth Muppets machine. Because it cannot roam much farther than across a grove, across a grove in 14 days. Come on. It requires 2 days to climb the top of a tree, where it generally is in the habit of staying, and 2 more days to climb down again. The Spaniards call it by, I don't know what, the Spaniards call it by, I don't know what other name. He call it by I don't know what other name. American sletters, however, call it a hound, perhaps because it lets itself be heard nightly in the following way. Ha, 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 ha. It stops on every interval for the sake of clarity, as you can see. That is an astonishing musical wonder of nature, just as if this wretched little animal wanted to sing either with letters. Just as if this wretched little animal wanted to sing either with letters. Ut, re, mi, fa, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, re, ut. Truly a wonder, for exactly this number of scale degrees and no more can essentially be used in the tonal order, here in C. C is thus the steward or tonic pitch. G is the foreman. A with the minor third is the shift maid. E with the minor third is the assistant maid. F is the day laborer. And D with the minor third is the errand girl. Okay, but we'll talk about this. We'll delve into this because something which is going to be quite funny, but even interesting in the next video. So let's take now a rest because this video is becoming very long, 37 minutes. And in the next video of this series, we'll continue talking about the sound of the American sloth. I'm curious to see what's the sound, if there is a sound of the American sloth, because I cannot imagine what it could be. Let's see. Maybe this way. Let's see. Yes. That's true, eh? That's true. Ah. That's true. How to say the verse, animal verse? No, versi. Animal sound. Okay, sound. Verse straight or not straight? I mean, yawning.
This one.
Okay, again.
Really tough job. Again.
No one will. I'm different.
Where is the noise? Noises.
Calling for mom. Three toad sloth squeaks.
Okay, so now we know the reason of so the sound of the American sloth. That's why. Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. Let's continue our journey with Riepel. In this video, we're going to analyze the farm with all the character moving around. What do I say? So we are here before this example, and Riepel is making this comparison with a different keys, ut, re, mi, fa, sol, la, and some character moving around in the farm. So there is, for example, the key, the C major key, which is called the steward, Then there's the G major pitch, which is the foreman, A minor, which makes the shift made. What's the Italian name of shift made? Let's see it. Shift made. In italiano. Shift made is capocameriera. Okay. Shift made. E with the minor third is the assistant maid. Okay. F is the day laborer. Let's see. Day laborer in italiano. Lavoratore a giornata. Okay. The day laborer. And D with the minor third is the errand girl. Errand girl, let me just verify what it means in English. Errand girl, I know, but errand, what it means? Fattorina. Because errante, errand recalls errante in Italiano, but it's not the same thing. I mean, yes, fattorina because he moves around, but errante, it's in Italian is more randomly. Okay, but makes sense. Yes, it's pretty similar. Now there is this note 114. Steward or tonic pitch. Yes. Do you remember that in the previous video I said that this terminology, the other one, there's a point where he talked about some notes, the D sharp, and about this note he said something about let me find the point. There was a D sharp, and I said, oh yes, it's Walter that in the Musicalische Lexicon is talking about this D sharp. Let's see if we can find the point. No, I cannot find it. By the way, it's in one of the previous videos. And in the Saxon Musical Lexicon, probably, yes, it may be something in common because that book is called Musicalische Lexicon. That may be something not so far. By the way, let's continue. Footnote 114. The boy even calls him Mr. Steward. If the polite title perhaps even comes into use among the farmers, then the struggle overrun between whole and half farmers will at last really start. I was recently even more shocked in that I heard of one wealthy court farmer named Florian von Steinbruck, except that I learned immediately afterward that only his farm held the name von Steinbruck from time immemorial. Why are the French as not as addicted to pomp in this matter as we are? in order to come up with a sensible heading for a letter and not into sin against the aristocracy. The farmers will soon have to start learning French. Shame on us and our language. Only our music remains free from the French fashion. Good. So, C with the minor third, it says, is on the other hand the chief med of E flat. True. Because if the chief med in C major is A minor, C minor is a 6th degree of E flat major. True. However, because she can sometimes also help here, we will also let her represent the black gradle. I will display this only in a miniature. So what's the black gradle? Black gradle. Not the Black Friday. Right, black. It's on Google, it appears Black Friday. Grendel nero. In the epic poem, Beowulf, the first of the three antagonists that Beowulf has to fight with. Okay. Let's see. The Black Grendel. Nice. You see, the steward or tonic C often returns, even in the middle, as if he wanted continually to deliver new orders or reports. In a word, he must be left neither out of sight nor out of hearing. Everything winds and turns around him as a cat turns around the mash. Mash, what's the mash? Let's see the mash. The mash. The mash. Wait, dictionary. Mash is the purea. Ah, ok, poltiglia, mash. Okay. Mistura, miscuglio, yes. Through him, one can get to any of his subordinates in an instant. Yeah, so we start with the steward in C major. Then the foreman, because now we are in G major. Steward. The chief med. Assistant med. F, so E minor. Day laborer. Re, mi, fa. I would continue. Actually, because I need the phone. I need the monte, but it does something different. Cadence to D minor, the errand runner. So fa, mi, fa. Then back to C major here, mi, fa. So the steward, mi, fa. Black Grendel. And if we check the rhythm, the arriving point is the same, so it's a kind of black version, mutatio toni. ran ton ton tire ton ton to ya tre to re ti la so fa sol mi fa mi re do, and the blacks and the steward at the end, because the steward is the first who begins to work and the last who left, who used to leave the work, to finish the work. You see the steward. Okay, we have already read this. Let's see. There is the steward and then the foreman, steward, and chef med, all the combinations. So the steward, and the foreman, or chief med, or steward, the assistant med, very nice this way to make the first cadence to C major, and then the second phrase ending with a cadence to all the degrees. A good exercise. Or ti tante fa mi dom to si re so da ti te to ta 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 ti te ti re ta ta ti te, and going on. The advantage must be at hand. The advantage must be at hand without interruption. If I omit the black render and the steward from the middle, however, I can represent the preceding example by means of letter C, G, A, E, F, D, C. Okay. In an allegro or a symphony, or a concerto, however, we use none beyond the foreman and occasionally the chief med, so the minor relative. The steward is already understood. The rest of them generally occurs only as cesuras or commas and always alternate with one another, and precisely this way. The day laborer makes the monte because the day laborer is the fourth degree. And the errand girl, the fonte, yes, because the minor. And the foreman always takes the ponte for himself. Amazing. So the day laborer makes the monte because it starts on the fourth degree. Mi fa mi fa. The errand girl makes the fonte so fa mi, and the foreman always takes the ponte for himself because it's the fifth degree. Wow, that's very powerful to think in these terms. Pam 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 fa mi do, re sol fa mi do, pam pa 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 fa mi re, ponte fa mi fa pam pa re sol fa mi ta chief med fa mi re, then fonte ta to ti re ta ti re ta tri to, monte fa te to ti ta 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 ti to ti, and here it's a monte where to tin ta 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 ra, this mi fa ascending, that's why ti ta to ti to ti ta 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 ti to ti don tin to se ra mi re sol mi fa mi re ut. Good. So the chief med, the errand girl forms the fonte, and the monte is made by the day laborer. Let's play this again. Okay. By means of the 2 plus Cs, you will notice that I have called upon the steward each time that I have called upon the steward each time in order to direct myself toward the successive appointed middle keys by means of the two scenes plus and plus. So these two scenes. You will notice that I have called upon the steward each time, upon the steward. I've called upon the stewards each time in order to direct myself toward the successive appointed middle keys, because it's against to C, that's why steward. Fa mi, in order to direct myself toward the successive appointed middle keys. So after the stewards, the shift med, and after this, the F major, so the day laborer. Makes sense. I said before that the rest of the keys can alternate with one another. In order to show you this, I will now omit the ponte and monte. It's saying that many pieces also sound too common and pedestrian in their use of the 6th degree, so the shift med. Occasionally, that's why. Okay, let's see now. Without, he says monte and ponte, so only with the fonte. So there's a G major and C major. So there's the steward. Then the foreman. The shift med. Okay, so there's the fonte and the fonte, which is the errand girl. Then, I will compose instead a monte from a fonte. Let's see. The foreman. Let me see this better. Fa pa pam 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 pa pa pam pa fa sol fa la. That's why there's a dot, which is very hidden. La sol fa mi re do. Fa pam pam pa fa la la sol fa mi re do. Yes. So where is the monte? Mi fa fa mi fa, as you can see. And then the steward at the end. Fa mi re do. The free alternation of monte, fonte, and ponte is already known to me from horn pieces, and I already could have seen the shift med, namely the modulation to the 6th degree, as a feminine tonality. In the Allegro, in the first chapter on page 53 to 40 to 54. In the second Allegro, namely on page 55, the opening is repeated just above, with a ponte after the cadence in G. In the second Allegro, namely on page 55, the opening is repeated just as above, with a ponte after the cadence in G. The repetition, then which is the ponte, right? Beginning repeated. So let's read it again. In the Allegro, in the first chapter, okay. In the second allegro, namely on page 55, the opening is repeated just above, with a ponte after the cadence in G. Ah, yes. Mi, fa, opening repeated, and then the section. So, cadence to G, in G, ponte, then it continues to A minor. Closing in the sixth, so the shift method. However, one could entirely omit such a repetition of the opening, that is the ponte. One could entirely omit such a repetition of the opening, that is the ponte, at one's pleasure, and likewise after the cadence, so the cross, turn toward the shift method. A. Okay. So after this, we can omit the repetition and moving directly to the ponte. This is what it's saying. Good. Pam pam. Pa pam 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 pam. Closing in the sixth. What pleases me most, however, is that I myself composed these two allegros since we wrote the first chapter together. The first has the alla breve style and the second has the common time style. I even went to the sixth degree, A, and from there back again by means of the ponte, and from there back again by means of the ponte, namely as follows: C, G, A, and C. In this, I merely followed my ear. This structure must already be found in nature. Not that I would want to make an analogy between myself and the above-mentioned slots, so that I know really have become acquainted with this structure. I will likewise use it to arrange your allegro, which you set down above your about 4 minutes ago. I will likewise use it to arrange your allegro, which you set down about 4 minutes ago, in 64 measures, and will meanwhile now prolong it a little. I don't know why it says 4 minutes ago, actually, because it would be more than 4 minutes. By the way, it's a tonic comma. Good. Mi, fa, then. Repetition. Changing comma. Good. Repetition. So, fa, mi, re, mi, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do, re. Repetitions. And then the beginning of the second part here, and then it continues. So after the two opening bars, phrases, 4 plus 4, there's a sol fa mi, sol fa mi, mi fa mi re, mi fa mi re, mi. This recalls to me a ponte. So fa mi re, mi fa mi re, mi fa mi re, mi do re, mi fa sol, la sol fa mi re do re, la sol fa mi re do re, do. Piano, sol fa mi re, mi sol fa mi re, fa mi la sol mi fa sol la fa mi re, mi ton 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 ton. Then beginning of the second part. Sol la fa la sol fa mi re do. This is a changing comma. Okay, on the fifth degree. Un po'. Then tire tom, tom pam pam fa la la sol fa mi re do fa la sol fa mi re mi fa sol la ta tire to A minor. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Here the new section is starting with bar number 1. Do pam re fa la sol fa mi re do, tonic comma, fa la sol fa mi re mi fa sol la ta ta ra ta ta tan, changing comma of A minor because it's the fifth degree. Tan 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 ta ha ta ra tan ta ti ti ta ra ta ti ti ta tom pi tan. Very important thing because I didn't used to call this changing comma and tonic comma, but in general, and anytime I compose a piece, especially if it is a dance, if I want to make a cadence to A minor, okay, at the end of the previous phrase, I make a cadence to the fifth degree of that key in order to better approach it. This is one of the most important things I say in the dance suite and dance course, the third level of the Musicus Practicus Baroque path, but even when I teach one-to-one and we are composing a dance or something else, or improvising a section, before approaching an A minor section, make cadence like this to the fifth degree of the key you're going to approach. Then very long fonte here because the first section of the fonte is long. La sol fa mi re do, la fa mi fa la fa mi fa ti ti, and variations with syncopations. That's very nice, eh? Ta fa mi fa pam 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 pa 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 ti ti, forte pam 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 fa mi. Repetitions with variations. Bim bam 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 fa mi re mi sol fa mi re mi do re mi fa sol la sol fa mi re do ri do, piano sol fa mi re mi sol fa mi re fa mi la sol mi fa sol la fa mi re do re do 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 do. Wow. And the last 8 bars are the transposition at the first degree of this. Don 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 from here. I've prolonged the 2 comma segments at the beginning, which was the 2 comma segments at the beginning, which was not really necessary. I could also have repeated the 2 measures following the plus scene. The 2 measures following the plus scene. This one, the sol fa mi. So for example, and I wish to, just as one sees at S in the second half. S. Yes, here there's a repetition exactly with variations. As you can see. Good. Here we have the repetition. So let's say simple and then with diminutions. Good. Before here. I have written beginning of the second part at letter P for a major repetition. For a major repetition could be placed there by means of the sign with a double repetition, this sign. However, this major repetition is seldom used anymore these days, as far as I can see. It may perhaps indicate the composer poverty of ideas. The double bar is certainly a very easy way to prolong a piece. The double bar is certainly a very easy way to prolong a piece. But what is no reason to reject the concept of an opening allegro? Just look, however, at the andante and the final allegro in symphonies by great masters. Sinfonia, good sounding harmony music. There can be found often also, unfortunately, a sinfonia discourse, especially when the composer himself is incorrectly tuned. There can be found often also, unfortunately, a sinfonia discourse, especially when the composer himself is incorrectly tuned. This misfortune has not yet befallen me when I am in service, because I came from people of good sense. One will see the double repetition scene as often as not, because a symphony is written only as an introduction or opening at the theater or at a concert. All composers not only achieve prolongation by means of the double repetition scene, but some, I say not all, Italians throw together such bad introductory symphonies that one would almost believe that they do it in order to make the voices that follow sound better, so to create a contrasting effect. I am, however, of just the opposite opinion, for such a symphony could spoil the whole opera for me. At the same time, a strong opening can elevate, cover up, and in part improve many weak things. Now, however, so creating a good priming. Now, however, further, at the double scene, a double cross, I have once more leapt quickly downward to the lower octave from the high D, from the high D, not high D, high D, from the letter P. Okay, wait a moment, let's see. There's a letter P. No, that's a double cross. Where is the double cross? Come on. I don't see the double cross. There's the cross here. Yes. Instead of pam para pam pom pam. So it's should supposed to be do, ta, this point to the octave, to the lower octave, yes, from the high D. From letter P onward until that point, okay, all the notes from my harmony application are easy for the fingers, for I know that in this case you give great consideration to simplicity. So P, okay, beginning of the second part, okay, up to this point, to the double cross, okay. Certainly, I give as much consideration to ease of execution as to metric and tonal order themselves, those that can be achieved without difficulty. For difficulties can be composed even by a peasant if he has merely made a little beginning in music. I knew several of them in Bohemia. Instead of the fonte at letter Q, I will immediately form a monte. Instead of the fonte, a monte at letter Q. Okay, instead of the fonte. At letter R, I have afterward made an insertion of 4 measures which I could have omitted according to necessity. I have made an insertion of 4 measures which I could have omitted according to necessity. I should have said the 2 measures at letter S, but let's see letter R. So pam pam pa pam pa pa pam pam pa pam 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 pam. So pa, the syncopation. It's talking about the syncopation. Okay. Pam pam pa ta 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 tan tan ta tan pam pa fa bi la ta tan ta. I like the repetition, but could be omitted, of course. Then at letter S, when there is the variation of the sol fa mi, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? The letter S. I should have set the two measures, the letter S, together with the previous two measures, an octave higher, in view of the two measures rise in the first part. So I should have set the two measures at letter S together with the previous two measures, an octave higher, in view of the two measure rise in the first part, at C plus. Only the difficulty of fingering holds me back from doing it. I would have gone up much too far. In order not to write out the whole allegro again, okay, but then it's going to cut the letter S. So let's see. The letter S is starting here. So probably he's saying that instead of this, he wanted to be an octave higher. Okay, because here we have an ascending lip, as you can see, from this E to C. In the previous section, we had a descending third. So descending third, that's why he's saying an octave higher. But now he's putting them an octave down, and so there is an ascending sixth, the inversion of the third. Makes sense. Then, in order not to write out the whole allegro again, I will only write the two measures before letter Q, in order to show you a monte instead of a fonte. So the monte pa pam pam sol fa ti re to ti ta 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 ti re to ti ta. Okay. La ta 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 la. Let's say the core of the monte seems to be this one, and because what's before is slightly different, but the tonal process is the same, of course. Okay. Fa la ta te ta sol sol fa la sol re re mi fa mi pa pam mi fa mi fa. Then there's a mi fa here, and then along mi fa. Here it is. Good. Even if so good. Sol fa di re sol fa ti fa la so fa mi re sol fa mi do. Fa mi do. Good. Then let's read the footnotes before. 117 is about because a symphony is written only as an introduction or an opening. So introduction or opening, and then the other words is about concert. Let's see. introduction or opening. That is why a symphony is also called an ouverture, la française, which French word seems to have been taken over even by many Italians, for I have heard obertura, said more than once, but apertura from aprire, ouvrir the door, aprire la porta, not once. Aperire, yes, said more than one, but apertura not once. Okay, an ouverture always consisted of a brief, heavy andante with a famous dotted French rhythm and a fugue following immediately thereafter. Andante and a fugue. Instead of a final allegro, gavottes or other pieces were composed. True. Or even gigas, other pieces like gigas, very common in the Italian overture. Sinfonia, like Alessandro Scarlatti's style. Since that time, however, especially in Germany and Italy, the theater has been opened by means of a symphony just as well. The theater has been opened by means of a symphony just as well. Concerto here means a performance of music. Speakers of Romance languages, however, say collegium musicum or also academia. Concert comes from the word concertare, to stray with each other, because in a performance of music, now this one, now that one, puts oneself forward and is heard in a solo in order to win a victory. Many, however, come merely for a glass of wine or for applause. Okay. Here, in order to create a monte that rises by one step, I have written 6 measures, namely 3 measures for each member of the chordal sequence. So of the 3 plus 3, 3/4, the 2 threesomes. Just as the previous fonte, which fell by one step. Hopefully, you will believe that I could have stretched them out longer, even twice as long. Accordingly, I will vary this allegro industriously several hundred ways at all, by means of repetition, expansion, prolonging, or shortening. The segment punctuated by commas, doubling of cadences in inversions at my pleasure. But what do you think of it the way it is now? For anyone who likes a clear melody, it is quite good, for there are enough commas in it to separate one segment of melody from the other. However, it is also said that the purpose of a symphony must be to knock down everything. Accordingly, your allegro might not be lively enough for many people. Thus, I should perhaps make the commas hang together more. This way. Stop! I already know that you're in a position to bring an allegro to its conclusion, even to write symphonies one after the other for 3 days on end. Certainly the commas hang together better here. For that reason, it may even sound a bit more lively than the previous allegro. Okay. So this is something which is going to continue a lot for a long time. So we can stop here. Yes. We can stop here and continue in the next video talking about the following examples where there is an allegro assai. Allegro assai, the repetition of the cadence here. Good. And so we'll continue this in the next video. Okay. Now I can stop.